Hello, everybody. This is Batt here from the Wildcats Wrap, Season 1, Episode 2, where today's podcast is supported and presented by the team at the Basketball Fix. For all your basketball needs in terms of articles, super coach advice, and podcasts about everything happening and unfolding in the world of the NBL, head to the Basketball Fix. This week, and hopefully for the foreseeable future, we're going to be joined by mad Perth Wildcats fan who lives and breathes the Perth Wildcats in Declan Pager. Declan, welcome to the show. And why don't you just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself and how your love of the Perth Wildcats initially started?
Yeah, so I've been following the Wildcats for 5+ years now. Started off as a teenager playing basketball in school, and actually seeing highlights of Bryce Cotton was the thing that actually started it. And I always knew there was a Perth team, and I was like, oh, I'll have a look and check it out, and I've fell in love ever since, mate. It's a joy to watch them, a joy to cheer them on. I just love everything about the Wildcats as a team, fan base, association. It's honestly awesome seeing what they do on the court, and I've been a massive fan since.
Well, it's just fantastic to have you on, Declan. Clearly, a massively passionate and supportive Perth Wildcat man. And let's sort of dive in straight to it. So let's take a look at what's happened previously. So it's the rewind, and we're going to rewind just to last night, where we head up to Cairns, the Perth Wildcats, on the Saturday evening, and there were certain similarities across this game compared to the Adelaide contest, being down and trailing for the majority of the first half. Heading into halftime, they were down by about 3 points before deciding to go to another level that Cairns just couldn't match. 39 points in the third quarter and 35 points in that fourth term. Their shooting during the half, you wouldn't read about it in that second half. 17 of 23 at 74% and 12 of 18 at 67% to end up winning 128 to 92. Now, Declan, do you think John really has just made the decision that defense is going to be second, and we're just going to focus on outscoring the opposition with, the sheer firepower that we discussed a little bit off air with Ben Henschel, Elijah Pepper, of course, the notorious Bryce Cotton, Keanu Pinder, Dylan Windler, and even Christian Doolittle when he returns? Like, has John really just gone, you know what, we're not going to worry about defense. We're just going to focus on outscoring our opposition?
It's funny you say that, because I actually watched his press conference, and he said that he's been doing more defensive drills with the team. It certainly has looked this way the last few weeks, that they've gone full offense is the way to go. And it's great to watch. Like, don't get me wrong, 120-point games, you're seeing shots flying up all the time. So it is good to watch. But I think the team and the coaching staff have come to terms knowing it's not offense that's just going to win you a championship. You've got to have both. And I think they learnt that after the Illawarra game. Yes, we scored over 100 points quite easily, but we still lost the game. So I believe they've come to terms knowing, yes, there's a few things, that defensively they need to fix. But honestly, if he didn't say that in his press conference, I'd be saying here right now, he's gone full offense, and that's the way that they're going. But because of what he said, I'm starting to think maybe they're going to have some changes to their defense in the coming weeks.
Well, yeah, it's certainly going to be a big time watch this space. And, John really was, a fascinatingly, high-scoring shooter in his own right too. So maybe that's just how it's going to work. And I guess sort of that's what we sort of just discussed then. It tied directly into a question from Moose Hansen on Cat Chat, where they asked, can offense beat defense? So let's just sort of dive into that just a little bit quicker. Do you think, based on, how the Wildcats are playing Declan now, do you think that the offense can beat defense, not just in, a couple of games, 2-3, game winning streak? Can it get you to the top 4, top 2? Can it win you a championship? Is it sustainable?
I think they can definitely get to the top 2 with what they're doing. I believe in my eyes that the Wildcats have the most firepower offensively from a roster perspective. But I feel like once you get to that grand final, semi-final feel, if your offense doesn't click,
Yeah.
you can tend to force it, and that can go very bad very quickly. So I think with a bit of both, and they can get that right by the end of the season, they'll be perfect for that finals atmosphere and challenge. But I still think that they're a very strong side if they stay how they are with their offense. I think they're aiming for top 2. I think every team aims for that at the end of the year, but I believe they can get there with the way they're playing, and I still believe they can make a grand final series. Whether they win it playing that way is a whole nother question. So, yeah, I think there needs to be a bit more defense if they're going to win the whole thing, but they're playing an entertaining way of basketball. It's fun to watch. I can't say, change it.
That's very true. Yeah, as a fan, as a supporter, and even someone who maybe has no affiliation with the Perth Wildcats, but you like it and enjoy watching basketball, high-paced basketball. This is the team that you want to watch and you want to tune in whenever they're playing because as you sort of said, shots are going up, they're going in. I think the other thing is that you just got to be aware of it. Can you get 120 points every single night? Highly unlikely. So yeah, just a really good question by Moose Hansen. So thanks so much for sending that in to Cat Chat, and we're just fascinated, just like everyone is, to see how the defense does evolve across the next month, and if they can rein it in. Did actually say that Cairns were restricted to 18 points and 17 points in the final 2 quarters, so maybe there is a glimmer of hope there. Of course, 7 of 24 field goals from Cairns and 5 of 14 3-pointers didn't help them in that second half either. Let's get to a couple of stats that matter. And, well, he's been on the name of everybody's lips across the last 7 days, and he did it again. So, like for us, Declan, it wouldn't be right if we didn't touch on him. And, of course, it's none other than Bryce Cotton. Let's just sort of wind it back a little bit just to get the whole story of Bryce. 59 points up against New Zealand, 40 points up against Illawarra, and then 49 points up against Adelaide. And then throw in 15 assists, 12 rebounds, 47 of 72 field goals at 65%, 18 of 32 at 65%, also from the 3-point land, and 95% from free throw line. And then you throw in last night's 44 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, and 17 of 27 field goals. It's just like, it's unfathomable. And like I say this, of course, with a massive grain of salt. Is the rib injury the best thing to have happened to Bryce? Having 3 weeks off or whatever it ended up being. But he just keeps finding a way to go to another level. And of course, he continued that into Saturday. This vein of form that he's in, Declan, it's just like insane. And John really and the team, how much credit you give to John, who knows? But the team is finding a way to get in the ball, but it just doesn't look like it's ISO ball. It's not him just going solely, I'm just going to take over because I want to get these records. It's sort of happening organically. So I guess the big question, which was talked a little bit about last week, specifically too by Josh Higgins from the Basketball Fix, where does he sit that you believe in the GOAT conversation?
In my eyes, I do think he's the greatest of all time, especially import-wise. If anyone was to throw the argument up against him and Gaze, I can't discredit Andrew Gaze for what he's done. But in the modern era of NBL, there's no doubt that he is the best by a country mile. His longevity, the things he's done, the accolades, there's no one even close. The things he's put up, the numbers, and just every game, like he'll play 40 minutes if he has to. And yeah, it's crazy to think he's breaking more records now that are 30 years old records. They've been around for so long. And I'm at the point now where I think he's just going to score 40 every game. Yeah, it's crazy what he does. Honestly, he's my favorite basketball player in the world to watch in any league. It's a joy to watch, and I think why we've got him here. Just people need to get around him and just love it for what it is, because it's a once in a lifetime sort of player for the NBL. And yeah, I could talk about this for a whole hour. There's just so many words and everything. He's in my eyes, he is the greatest of all time, 100%. And he's only going to get better. I feel he's still got a long way to go in his career. So who knows? He could have 8 MVPs by the time he's done.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, there is some serious man crush vibes going on there, Declan. That is for sure. But justifiably so too. Bryce has just been unreal in the 6 or 7 seasons that he's been here in the NBL, and of course, fortunate enough for us that he managed to find his way to the Perth Wildcats. Yeah, so 192 points, 21 assists, and 15 rebounds across those 4 games. So just unfathomable. Here, let's just quickly, because recency bias is obviously, super prevalent here, because he's doing it right in front of our eyes only a couple of weeks ago. But he's second only to Andrew Gaze, who did actually have 4 of the top 7, which is claimed for 4 consecutive 40-plus games. So Gaze had 4 of the top 7, which is unreal in itself. But only due to sheer amount of MVPs, Andrew has 7, of course. But the major difference of Bryce performing all of his feats in the 40-minute era, compared to a lot of Andrew's time was in the 48 minutes. So, there are plenty of debates, plenty of pros and cons as to why. But I think it's getting, the more that Bryce goes, it's clearly Andrew and Bryce at the moment, and sort of just some other players behind that. But Bryce is certainly making a really strong claim to be, definitely one of the best imports, and then if not the greatest player that we've seen in the NBL. Let's get to a couple of look at me, which are a couple of standout offensive or defensive performances from the games that we review. And of course, we're just talking about the Cairns game, but I think across the last couple of games in particular, when he's had opportunities, and we're sort of touching about this gentleman off air too, Deck, and it's Todd Withers. I am a massive fan of this guy. He's just been super impressive from an attitude perspective, because he signed with the club as an injury replacement, knowing that he could only play if one of 3 players didn't, of course, an import. But they've all had stints on the sideline. Unfortunately for the Perth Wildcats, but fortunately for Todd Withers, sorry. And when he's come in, he's just played his role. He's changed the game in a positive fashion, and he's made just incremental gains for the team. Against Adelaide, he hit some big threes. He was also plus 22 when he was on the court up against Cairns, even in only 16 minutes. And he hit 2 big threes there as well. He just plugs and fills gaps where he needs to. Declan, as I said, we sort of touched on it off air, but what have you sort of seen or been impressed from Todd in the games that he's had so far this season with both? Well, sorry, not both, all 3 of them. Dylan, of course, Christian, and then BC have missed sizable patches across the season.
I think his defense is the key here. Like he doesn't stop with his effort on that end. I watch him, and I think he's a bit underrated. Not many people talk about him, but he's solid. He doesn't do anything too crazy. He doesn't jump out at you, so to speak, like a Bryce Cotton. But he's a solid player. He plays his role. And I find he doesn't get flustered in the moment, whether the game's on the line. He just does the same thing, plays, for the team. In my eyes, I think he should be on a full-time roster spot. I think that the only thing that stops that is obviously Bryce Cotton's citizenship debacle. But he is solid. He is definitely a defensive weapon, and when things aren't going on the offensive end, he can drop a 3 and get into the paint. So he's very versatile, and he's a key player for us, to be honest. And what he offers the team, I like. I think he's a great player, and I'm also a massive fan of him. I don't see too many cons in his game, and each game just performs at a good level. And just keeps it ticking over defensively and offensively.
Yeah, you definitely know what you got. what you're going to get from him, and he's super consistent. And if you're a coach, all you want from any player is just to know what you're going to get from them when they hit the court, and you want them to be consistent. So there's no big ups and downs. He's not going to be, dunking the ball, hitting 10 threes or like, but he's just going to give you something. He's going to change the game. If you need the game change and you need, it swung in your direction. Yes, super surprised he didn't get picked up by another team, but hey, everyone else lost is our game for sure. All right, let's get to a quick little injury update. Of course, Keanu Pinder was under the weather with tonsillitis. We did come back to playing that game against Cairns, so kick that one off. He is finally off the list and is back playing. Massive relief for Perth Wildcats fans. But of course, the big one is Christian Doolittle got a groin injury a week ago. He was a day-to-day proposition, then got scans on the injury last Saturday, so a week ago after the Friday game against Illawarra. He only hit the court for a minute, and scans came back, and he was announced that he's going to be out for about 3 weeks. So he's going to be ruled out at least for the remainder of 2024. So I guess the Perth Wildcats, they showed that they can win without him. But yeah, he's clearly one of the most important pieces in the team. And that's, of course, a couple of those games were without Keanu Pinder as well. So yeah, they can certainly be competitive without him, but they can't. I don't think they can be top 2 or championship worthy until he returns. So they've just got to hold the fort down, just like they did with Bryce, and we'll just have to wait and see how that all unfolds. But let's get to some young talent time. And you know what? A bit of he's not a DP, he's obviously a full-time roster player, but coming from Melbourne United, his second season with the Perth Wildcats, is David Aquera. In the absence of Christian Doolittle, David needed to step up to help Ethan Almanza in the 5 position. And against Adelaide, he racked up 11 minutes and 7 points. I'm just hoping that with this enforced injury absence of Christian from the squad, he'll get more of a run and I guess show the fans his true potential. So Declan, what would you like to see and hope from David in his more minutes that he'll definitely get across the next couple of weeks? Had, I think, between 5 and 10 minutes against Cairns last night. Didn't set the world on fire, of course, but just what do you want to see from him from his development as well when he is on the court?
Yeah, I think his timing, to be honest, needs a bit of work. Yes, he can knock down shots and he can block shots either end, but I find at times he can rush it quite quickly and turn the ball over. And I think that comes down to just court time and the feel of the game. Like if he's in there for 15, 20 minutes each game, he knows what he's going to do. He's got the feel for it. So I think just a bit more work with timing for his game. And then to just get in the paint a bit more offensively. Like he's a big guy. I think he's about 6'10". So he's tall. He's got the athleticism. He can put the ball to the floor. So I think it's either a confidence factor and him just knowing within himself like he can do that. So yeah, they would be the main things. I could nitpick at his defense, but I haven't seen him on the court long enough to say his defense isn't good, because a lot of it has been junk time where it's just they're running the ball up and down trying to get a shot. So I think all round he's a pretty solid player. He can definitely give you those minutes as a backup sort of 5. But just a couple little things of his game. But he's still a young player, so I'm not too concerned in that matter.
No, definitely not. And yeah, you're spot on about his height. And his wingspan is just insane. I went to an NBL 1 match earlier on in the year with one of my mates. I think he was playing for the East Perth Eagles, and yeah, just like so tall, like deceivingly tall. But then, so mobile, being able to get to the hoop, and he can stroke the 3. We saw that numerous times when he was playing for United, and I'm pretty sure he had 1-3 the other night up against Cairns too. So, shooting 3s is clearly where he feels comfortable, but when you're that tall, you want to be getting into the paint and, being aggressive, getting rebounds. And, as you said, defense is something that, him, of course, and along with the whole team, just need to continue chipping away, refining at, and just, showing that tenacity, I guess, resilience and just toughness, to box out people when you've got, a lot of the time, that sheer height, over many opponents. So certainly a really good, development player for us to watch. Of course, not as a development player, just a player with, a great deal of development and a massive upside for him as well. So yeah, we'll touch on a couple of players every couple of weeks, bit of young talent time watch. But David definitely stood out for me, but many others on that list. Would love to see a little bit more. Of course, it is very much dependent on where the game is heading, but a bit more of Dante Russo Nance, and even Michael Harris too. I feel like he's been missed a lot from getting minutes, and expected big things from him this season. But we can come back to that a little bit later on. Let's sort of look ahead. So preview of the next game, and of course our crystal ball. So the predictions of who needs to stand up, who has to have a stand-up game, and how we feel the game's going to play out. So it is against the Illawarra Hawks at the Wynn Entertainment Centre, 11:30 a.m. Western Standard Time next weekend. I want to test Declan to see where the Wildcats truly sit in the pecking order and the big scheme of the NBL. They don't even need to win for mine. They just need to push them, be a bit stronger on the inside from a defensive perspective compared to a week ago, where they were just destroyed in the paint by, of course, the Darius Days and Sam Froling in particular. Gave up far too many points at the free throw line too. So Illawarra just got what they wanted. Sort of pretty similar to what I guess Perth did with Cairns last night. Not so much in the paint, just the shooting was ridiculous. But they've got to be a lot stronger there. Even with, and they know that Doolittle's still not going to be there. Pinder will be, so that's going to make a difference for sure. But we need to see a bit of a stronger Keanu Pinder too. So Declan, what are the keys in your eyes to the match? How or where can the game be won and lost from a Perth Wildcats perspective, and who needs to stand up, whose name isn't Bryce Cotton?
Yeah, I think the easy thing would be to say if Bryce Cotton gets shut down, that it's going to be very hard for us to win. But I think with Pinder coming back, he needs to have a big game. One of those 20 and 12 sort of games, and just be a good presence on the defensive end, especially with Days and Froling. Like, they're both big bodies. They love to get in the paint. That's their bread and butter. And their team, Illawarra, they make that known. Like, they go for them in the paint. So I think Pinder is going to play a big factor now that he's back. We definitely need that size and athleticism towards the rim. So I think that is the one player that needs to have a standout game. And then again, Todd Withers, he could come up really well for us defensively. With those bodies, I think running Withers and Pinder on the floor at the same time could really help us match up well against their bigs. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be a very big contest for us. And it is going to definitely shape the top four, so to speak, and show us where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great call with the Todd Withers and sort of Pinder playing together. And I'm really hoping that Todd gets a little bit more minutes. Basically him, Ithan, and David Quera to a lesser extent. In that 4-5 position. Sort of rotating them through, and Jesse every now and then. Although in saying that he did have quite a nice night last night, not so much from a numbers perspective, and we'll sort of talk about him a little bit later. But just knowing where to pass, where to sort of be to do that screen and roll and the picks, he's just such a seasoned veteran. Let's quickly just dive into, and we couldn't touch on this last week because it was our first podcast, a bit of a rapid fire Q&A. So checking with some fans and address their questions from a number of different Wildcat supporters pages. So we're going to start us off with Daniel Evangelista. He asked, is the team going to make Todd Withers a full-time player next season? And we touched on a little bit about this, but let's sort of unpack it a bit more. And Faith Ellen also added, he seems very team-oriented as well, and a great positive influence. Faith, absolutely spot on. You have nailed it. And Daniel, a really good question. So I guess definitely it surely would be a case of Dylan Windler bringing him back, I think, or Todd Withers. It has to be out of one of those two we're talking about next season if you had to choose, because you'd want to be re-signing Christian, of course. It's just a matter of if he wants to stay or not. But Declan, is Todd Withers import worthy on a permanent basis? And I guess it's always the age-old question that's been going on for between 3 and 4 years. When or if will Bryce ever become an Australian citizen? That's going to be the big game changer.
Yeah, I think he should be. He's definitely got the skills for it. And just from a team perspective, like a lot of imports, they can come in, they want to knock down the jumpers, really get their score up, and sometimes they can lose that team feel. But as I said earlier in the pod, he is just so team orientated and calm, cool, and collected. I wish we could have 4 imports on a full-time deal, because the way that he plays, it's if you had to toss it up between Windler and Withers, I can't say each player because they both play different roles. Windler on the offensive end, like he gets his stroke in, he's knocking down those deep threes, deeper than most people in the league, really, from what I've seen. And Withers, he can knock it down as well, but it's the defensive end where he brings that energy, he pumps them up, he brings everyone together, and then there's that energy for the next, play and whatnot. So he definitely is worthy of it. The other question would be, can we get it done if Bryce gets his citizenship? Because we can't have 4. And I think if everything goes well this season and we don't get Bryce Cotton with his citizenship yet, I think we just run it back and have him again as a replacement player, just in case the imports go down, because he's that solid. I wouldn't want to see him on another team against the Wildcats because he is a good player.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how he's bounced back from his time in Adelaide, which wasn't really successful. But the fact that he himself has just committed to staying at Perth, knowing that he's not a full-time import, he's just a replacement player. I'm not trying to say that disrespectfully, of course, but he could end up at other teams. So if you're a Wildcats player, you want him to do well, but not too well to be noticed by other teams looking for a third import going into 25, 26. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see how that all plays out. It's definitely a future question. Faith, she's kept the ball rolling for us, asking how much has Jesse got in the tank? A really great question, and you've dived into what we sort of touched on a bit earlier. But last night, 15 minutes, he had 7 points, 4 assists, 3 of 5 from the field, and 22 plus minus. And so, Declan, is this the farewell tour for Jesse unofficially? Or I guess fans have been saying that for the last 3 seasons. What are your thoughts on Jesse? Do you think that this is the time? Not in you're not playing badly, but you want to be going out, contributing to the team still. Last season, he was okay. I feel like he's been a bit of a stronger contributor this season. So maybe this is the time.
Yeah, I think he's still a good player. Don't get me wrong. He can shoot the 3. He's very smart defensively. Like, he's not going to jump up and block shots, but he knows where to go, who to guard. I just think from an age perspective, I do think it will be the last season we see him. Not that he's playing badly, as you said. He is, he's definitely good for the team. He helps Bryce get open. He's very good with that, which I think comes from playing together for so long. But I can't see him personally going another season. So I think it will be the last season we see him, but he's still playing at a good level. And yeah, I hope he rounds out the season without any injuries and a good run, because he's been fundamental to the Wildcats culture and team for over 10 years now. So yeah, he does deserve the praise he gets. And as I said, still a solid player for us and definitely a team guy, which is what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. He's certainly the foundation of, and the word gets thrown around quite a bit, but the culture of the club. But that's definitely been him. He's kept everyone together. I'm pretty sure he's older than all the assistant coaches, so that's actually quite funny, to be honest. But yeah, I think that for him, this probably should be his last season. Still contributing on a pretty nice level, and he'll just do it in classic Jesse style. Won't really make much banter about it. He'll probably do a Twitter or an X post saying, I'm retiring. Classic Jesse, just not making it about himself at all. All right, let's quickly round us out with and let's come back to Dylan Windler and Declan. You yourself asked this question. You said, is he producing enough for the team at this time of the season? And well, it's clear that Dylan listens to the podcast, and he was scouring your questions because he responded in turn with 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 5 of 9 from 3-point land, and plus 31 in the plus minus section. Declan, has he done enough to get your vote? The all important vote, of course.
It's crazy timing that I actually asked that question and he delivered like he did. I was just like, okay, yeah, he's definitely looking. No, I think after last game, it did show he does have the skills offensively and defensively. He's great when it comes to rebounds. Like that is, that really does help us. And so I think, yeah, now that I look back at that game and watch a few of the other highlights of his and how he is for the team, I personally do think he is good for the team. It's more, can he stay injury-free for the rest of the season and have a good run without missing games? Because I feel like that's what hurt him at the start of the season, was missing 2 games every 5 games, so to speak. But I think if he has a good run, he'll find the shot, he'll have his rhythm. So I'm not concerned now after last game, because what he showed was some deep shooting, and I'd love to see that again. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got NBA range for sure. So there you go. Dylan, you're okay. You're in Declan's good books for now, but keep up the good work. Otherwise, Declan will be right on you for sure. Thanks so much, of course, to Daniel, Faith, and you yourself, Declan, for sending in those questions. So on Cat Chat, please do not forget to send in some questions to us and comments, and Declan and I will go through those questions the next podcast episode. So please keep getting them in. Of course, keep listening to us. And just to round us out before we finish off our pod, Declan, you wanted to give a bit of a shout out to the Red Army for filling up the RAC arena across the season to date, just with crowd numbers just like going through the roof.
Yeah, I just want to say a shout out to all the Red Army. I don't think many people bring it up, and I think you guys need the praise. Just everyone, members, non-members. We have the highest fan base and, rating in the country for the NBL. 11,000, I think we average, if not just a bit more. So it's great. It's good for the game. I think the boys love it. They need us fans. So just keep doing what you're doing. People do see it. And hopefully coming up at our next home game, we should get about 13,000 for that open air game. So, yeah, just keep filling up RAC Arena and, cheering the boys on.
That's it. And, they're going to be super keen to come home after, all those weeks on the road. So they're going to want to come home to, a really, really huge crowd. As you said, 13,000 would be just brilliant. And it's got that open air feel about it. I think last season it was postponed, was it? Because there was, rain or something along the lines in the air.
Yeah, it was the heat. I think it was nearly a 40-degree day, so they kept the roof closed.
There you go.
But we did get nearly 13,000 for that game. So
yeah, we can only hope there is a repeat of that. But unfortunately, time has gotten the better of us, as it always does, because we could talk about the Wildcats for ages, Declan. But that is the Wildcats Wrap Season 1, Episode 2. Now, please don't forget to hit up the Basketball Fix. On Facebook, Instagram. Of course, they're amazing web page as well. And if you'd like to write articles, if you'd like to be part of the team, sort of hit them up on all those social media channels and be part of the fan zone as well too. But Declan, thanks so much for coming on board. Looking forward to chatting all things Perth Wildcats next episode. But just before we sign off, what have you thought about your first appearance and your first inaugural podcast?
Yeah, it's great. I love, talking about something I have a passion for. It's exciting. And yeah, I look forward to doing more in the future. It's something I've never done before and wanted to give it a crack. And I love it so far. It's great to be on here, and thanks to you guys.
Absolute natural, Declan. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, of course, to like and subscribe as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But from Declan and I and the whole team at the Bustle Fix, well, we're out for now.